Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. 3 people are unaccounted for as bushfires rage across Australia's state of Victoria, with firefighters battling 30 active blazes under a catastrophic fire danger rating. Premier Jacinta Allen has warned of one of the state's most dangerous fire days in years. According to Ukrainian officials, Russian drone strikes has hit Kyiv just before midnight of Friday, killing 4 people, including an emergency medic, and injuring at least 19 people, with among them 14 hospitalized. Military administration head reports buildings and critical infrastructure were also damaged as well. President Donald Trump has said that he expects to meet Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. Meanwhile, interim leader Delcy Rodriguez rejected Trump's claims of U.S. control, insisting Venezuela remains sovereign. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has urged Europe to take President Trump seriously on Greenland after Washington floated buying the Danish territory and did not rule out military action to secure it. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed welcomed Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Addis Ababa for the first stop of the diplomat's New Year trip to Africa. The two leaders pledged deeper cooperation on issues including trade, infrastructure, energy, and transportation. Egypt and the European Union said they are working to implement the second phase of the US-brokered Gaza ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. Speaking in Cairo, according to joint press remarks, Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati and EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said the body must begin work without delay. According to Syrian state media, Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara held a phone call with French President Emmanuel Macron to discuss bilateral cooperation and latest developments in Syria and the region, while Syria thanked France for supporting Syria's stability and humanitarian recovery. NASA's Administrator Jared Isaacman has said that NASA astronauts aboard the International Space Station will return to Earth earlier than planned, following a medical issue involving one crew member. Now for this hour, we start with Venezuela. Former Venezuelan opposition candidate Enrique Marquez, who opposed Nicolas Maduro in the contested 2024 presidential election, has now been released from prison. The release comes amid a wave of prisoners released by the interim Venezuelan government under pressure from the United States. Venezuela's leader and Nobel Peace Prize Maria Corina Machado has hailed the release of political prisoners thereon, saying it showed that injustice would not prevail in the country. Meanwhile, the White House has said that Venezuela's first major prisoner release since the ouster of ruler Nicolas Maduro is because of maximum leverage applied by U.S. President Donald Trump. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Doctor, for joining us once again. Good to see you. Now, thank you. Now, looking at this, can you tell us a little bit more about the political opposition leader who was held in prison, Mr. Enrique Marquez?
You see, he's a former presidential candidate in Venezuela, and this is a very important development because when we relate to things like regime change and when we look at the political scenario of Venezuela in the future, what Trump intends to do, I think this is the first signal that he's trying to carry out pressure on Venezuela to release all these prisoners, political prisoners especially, who are part of the opposition parties. Because uh, it is unlikely that Maduro's supporters are going to be projected much in Venezuela, and Maria Corina Machado, who's also a part of the opposition leader, Nobel Peace Prize winner, she has also publicly welcomed this release as a positive step. Uh, we have to understand one important thing, that in the coming months, uh, President Trump would like to consolidate the political situation in Venezuela. He would like all these opposition leaders who have been released now to make a pitch now, because I think most probably the elections are going to be held in Venezuela, though as per the constitution, if a president of the country is absent for more than 30 days, they have to elect a new leader. But then I think President Trump has put a hold on that election as of now, because he wants more time to prepare the political scenario in Venezuela, because the ultimate aim is that to keep China and Russia out, because that is the ultimate aim of Trump. And not only in Venezuela, we are seeing the same kind of strategy being applied in Greenland. And also a strong message has been given to Cuba and Colombia to also fall in line. I believe the Colombian president is also to meet Donald Trump for a discussion. So I think a clear indication that strategically also I feel that this is a very strong move. And also from the human right consideration also, I believe international human rights groups have also cautiously applauded the release of this high profile detainees, because look at the way Maduro was governing this country. He was more like a dictator rather than a democrat, and the legacy of the previous president he was carrying on. After all, he was a prodigy of the earlier president of Venezuela. So we see certain operational dynamics now happening in Venezuela, because this release is going to bolster the morale of the opposition and the political capital, and it could also bring in how United States is able to leverage this present government also, because this government has ordered the release of this prisoners. So that means that this kind of leverage United States now has over the present government also, and this government also realizes that in case they have to be in some kind of a reckoning, they need the support of the United States.
Right. And how does, but from just my perspective, doesn't it complicate things more or further if you bring out not all, but maybe US is picking these people to free the political prisoners. He probably picking very carefully and strategically. Doesn't this complicate things with Rodriguez as an interim president right now, who seemed like she had support of U.S. for now, and then now U.S. also is eyeing a relationship with Machado?
Very good question, Suma, because you have correctly brought out that this has been a selective process, and not all political prisoners en masse have been released. So that shows that United States has handpicked those people who can make a difference, or who can put intense pressure on Rodriguez. Because see, the actually aim is that you want a regime. It can be a Rodriguez or it can be anybody else, to toe the line of the United States. Rodriguez is also getting a message that in case she's not going to behave, then there is an alternative available now, since these opposition leaders are in the open, and they will start canvassing and gathering support. and I'm immense. I mean, backing of the United States obviously is going to be with them. So I think it's like a countervailing force. It is how the deep state of America works. If you would have seen in all other countries also, where the uh, party in power is not towing the line of the United States, they are trying to push up the opposition, give them money, and other NGOs are also actually working actively. We have seen that happening in India also, that the opposition party and the NGOs are being influenced by the United States to push the government to accept its viewpoint. So I think you are very right that Rodriguez is also watching this development, and she would be also concerned that in case she is not able to deliver what United States wants to deliver, then she may be removed and there may be alternative available to be placed in her place. So I think that's a valid point, and I think a couple of months now we'll see how things develop there.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that, Major General Doctor. We will be eyeing that situation. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we stay in the region to U.S. According to Portland police, 2 people were wounded in a shooting involving U.S. federal agents in Portland, Oregon. The incident followed a traffic stop by federal agents, during which the Department of Homeland Security said the driver attempted to use his vehicle as a weapon against officers. An agent then fired what was described as a defensive shot, and the vehicle fled the scene. Portland police said their officers were not involved and were called later after reports of the shooting. A man and a woman with gunshot wounds were found several blocks away and taken to hospital. Their conditions remain unknown. Police said they cannot confirm the Department of Homeland Security's account and have no information supporting claims that the vehicle was weaponized. Now for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. Thank you very much, Major General Doctor, for staying with us. Now looking at this, what is going on? I would like to understand. In U.S., yesterday we saw ICE agents shoot a woman, a lady, in her face, and that was once again ICE agent saying that this is for the defense. And now we're hearing something similar, not exactly, but once again from U.S.
It's quite disturbing, Suma, because these are becoming very, very frequent now, and one would like to do a bit of research to see the statistics that in the last about 6 months, how many such incidents have taken place. And what it reflects it, it gets me thinking that when the United States came into being,
Yes.
it was it was known as the Wild West. A Wild West implies that you know we used to see as children also these movies of Wild West where they were showing people fighting with guns and all. So I think that era of the Wild West is slowly coming back to the United States. The way their own enforcement people are indulging in this kind of gunfights, and the simple explanation what one is getting is that the vehicle was weaponized. So, what do you mean by that? One thing. Secondly, what is the evidence? Because so far, no evidence has come about that these vehicles were weaponized. You killed a woman in Minneapolis yesterday on the same kind of analogy you gave, that she tried to run down the police person. Again, the same kind of analogy you're giving today, that this vehicle was trying to do the same thing. But you don't have any evidence, neither you are giving some kind of a CCTV coverage to show that what actually happened in the incident. So I think what I can analyze from this whole issue is that the federal federal power of President Trump's administration is being imposed on the local police authorities, and mostly it is to do with the enforcement of immigration. I think certain targets have been given to the immigration authorities to uh, accomplish in a period of time. So to get those targets into place, I think this sort of strong measures are being taken, and I think this is not good for the United States structure of governance,
Yes.
because it is mostly happening. I'm seeing this. If you again do some research on this, we will come to know further that uh, mostly happening in states which are governed by the opposition or by the Democrats. So this kind of divide, what we are seeing, or a misuse of power, I would say that I would use a stronger word here, a misuse of power by the federal forces onto the state police forces, and especially now it's a very crucial stage, because the primaries elections are going to be held in a couple of months from now, and this may become a big issue during the primaries also, which President Trump needs to be careful, because he wants to show to the people that he is going uh, uh, strong on immigration, because that is the message he's trying to actually give, that he has unleashed his federal forces onto those areas or to those states where the immigration identification of illegal immigration is not happening in the same manner he wants it to happen. So I think it's a kind of a strong enforcement on the opposition areas, and this is going to be exploited in these primaries. Already President Trump is under immense pressure as far as immigration policies are concerned, because it's not delivering in the manner he wanted it to happen.
Yes. Thank you for highlighting that, Major General Doctor. With that, I would like to thank Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we stay in U.S. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has said that the officer involved in the fatal shooting of a woman in Minneapolis acted in self-defense after the woman tried to ram somebody with her car. He has also stated that she was part of a broader left-wing network to attack ICE agents. This comes as on January 8th, a U.S. immigration agent fatally shot a 37-year-old mother of three in Minneapolis. State and federal officers have offered starkly different accounts of the shooting, in which an unidentified immigration and customs enforcement agent shot U.S. citizen Renee Nicole Good in a residential neighborhood. Let's listen into what J.D. Vance has said about the incident.
The reason this woman is dead is because she tried to ram somebody with her car, and that guy acted in self-defense. That is why she lost her life, and that is the tragedy. That woman is part of a broader left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and to make it impossible for our ICE officers to do their job. Well, being part of the network doesn't justify being shot, but ramming an ICE.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Matthew Vadum. He's an American journalist, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Vadum, for joining us once again. Good to see you.
Hi.
Hi. Now looking at this, how does these old news that's coming in from U.S. in past almost 48 hours, how does these cases reflect broader tensions around immigration enforcement and use of force, also accountability when federal agents are involved in civilian deaths?
You're talking about the protests?
Yes, protests.
They're
also
always, protests more or less continuously since President Trump started his aggressive campaign to enforce U.S. immigration law soon after he took office in January of 2025. So these protests have been more or less continuous since then. And the lady in the car in the SUV who was shot was part of that protest movement. And I imagine the protests are only going to grow louder and more boisterous now that she was was killed after she disregarded police officers' command to exit her vehicle and tried to flee and seemingly tried to run down a federal police officer.
Right. And now that we know that the statements from federal and state officials are conflicting. So how do you think that would be affecting or shaping the public understanding of what exactly happened in Minneapolis? And you earlier mentioned and you stated exactly what you saw in the footage. And what do you think, how is all of this shaping the public understanding?
I don't think the video footage of the incident in Minneapolis is so stark and obvious. I think it's so, I don't think it's so clear that it's going to dissuade people who don't want to be dissuaded about its contents. Maybe I'm not saying that well, but someone who wants to see the ICE officers as, vicious enforcers who don't belong and who are, harming innocent people, they're going to see that happened. People who support the immigration, the crackdown on illegal immigration in the U.S. Are going to see what they want to see in the video, which was that an ICE agent was bumped with a car by an anti-ICE activist. So I think that the videos are not so compelling that they settle the matter definitively. But as I've said, when a law enforcement officer in the United States is faced with a decision about whether to get rid of an attempt to end his life, to do him physical harm, he has to make a split-second decision, and the courts will almost always side with the police officer, unless it's patently unreasonable. So chances are this police officer, nothing is going to happen to this person, but Minneapolis is very anti-Trump, and maybe a jurisdiction in Minneapolis, a local jurisdiction, will charge the ICE agent with murder. They could try to do that. I don't think they would get very far with the charges, but they could try to do it. It could create a big legal mess, a great big legal headache for the federal government. But as I said, I think that the videos are not of what happened in Minneapolis are not so clear cut that people, that everyone is going to watch them and be convinced that a certain sequence of events happened. They're going to come away with their own conclusions. My conclusion,
Yes.
as you acknowledged, was that the officer had to make a split-second decision, and it seemed that he thought his life was in danger,
Yes.
and he acted. He fired upon the driver of the car, and that was justified. But there are going to be, I'm sure there are going to be investigations at the federal, state, and local level, and they're going to get to the bottom of it. But from my vantage point, that's what it looks like happened.
Thank you once again for highlighting and sharing that insight. Mr. Vadam, please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we stay in U.S. The United States Vice President J.D. Vance has sharply criticized Denmark and Europe for not doing enough to protect Greenland against Russian and Chinese intentions, calling on NATO allies to step up their security efforts. Vance has warned that if European leaders fail to take the island's defense seriously, Washington may act. The comments come as President Donald Trump pushes to acquire Greenland outright, even suggesting military options remain on the table following the U.S. capture of Venezuela's leader. Denmark and Greenland envoys have held urgent talks in Washington to dissuade the U.S. from pursuing a takeover and to defend the territory's sovereignty. European leaders, including the UK's Prime Minister, have reiterated support for Denmark's control and Greenland's territorial integrity amid rising Arctic tensions. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Matthew Vadum. He's an American journalist, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Vadum, for staying with us.
Sure.
Thank you. Now looking at this, how might this vice president's public criticism, also enforcement or highlighting, him highlighting, the fact that people need to, especially European leaders now, need to take criticism of Denmark and Europe over Greenland seriously. How do you think this will be affecting the NATO's cohesion and also U.S. relationship with their European allies?
Well, I think European leaders do need to take the United States concerns about Greenland seriously. They have rightly bristled at President Trump's suggestion that he could take Greenland by force. Soon after he made that comment recently, Secretary of State Marco Rubio jumped in to say that that's not what the United States plans to do, that if anything, the United States would purchase Greenland from Denmark instead of taking it by military, instead of conquering it in a war with Denmark. Because, why having the idea of having a war with Denmark, of all places, seems particularly silly. And, it wouldn't last very long. In any event, Europe has to take President Trump's concerns about Greenland seriously. Europe is not, as President Trump has said many times in criticizing NATO, Europe is not pulling its weight in terms of defending its own territory and is overly reliant on the United States to defend European territory, and Europe needs to step up and do more. And the United States is concerned that China and Russia are going to move into Greenland to exploit its mineral resources. And the United States doesn't want to have, doesn't want China or Russia to set up a colony or, mining operations so close to its shores in Greenland, in the Arctic Circle beside Canada. So I think Europe needs to take the criticisms of President Trump seriously. I don't think he's going to invade Greenland. I think that's just, he gets away with it. He goes too far sometimes in his rhetoric, and then people will, like Secretary Rubio, will come in and try to cool things down.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Matthew Vadum for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we stay in US. Intel shares have jumped in extended trading after US President Donald Trump praised the chipmaker and its CEO in a social media post highlighting the US government's investment in the company. Trump has said that he held a great meeting with Intel CEO Lip Bu Tan and described him as very successful while championing the government's role as a major shareholder. The move follows an $8.9 billion investment made last August when the U.S. government took a 10% stake in Intel through CHIPS Act grants and semiconductor manufacturing awards. According to Trump, that investment has already paid off. He said the government's stake has generated tens of billions of dollars for the American people in just 4 months. Intel shares have now surged about 75% since the investment was announced, boosting the government's holding to more than $18 billion. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.